London, Boston, Paris, Athens, and Berlin have them first, but what will become the world's largest subway system opens in New York City in 1904. The first Nobel Prizes are given in 1901. The first woman to win a Nobel Prize is Marie Curie for physics in 1903. She's also the first person to win 2 Nobel Prizes. With her husband Pierre, she studies radioactivity, discovering polonium and radium. Her discoveries lead to the atomic age and new treatments for cancer. Guglielmo Marconi wins his Nobel Prize in physics for being the first person to transmit a wireless message. In 1901, he sends the single letter S across the Atlantic from England to Newfoundland. No cables, wires, nothing, just through the air. Marconi's accomplishment opens the door for the development of radio and television. The first decade of the new century produces iconoclastic personalities and revolutionary advances in science and medicine, like Max Planck with quantum mechanics. There's Paul Ehrlich. His compound 606 produces a cure for syphilis. And William Gorgas, whose work in Cuba and Panama helps eliminate yellow fever and malaria. And George Washington Carver, whose research leads to the American South's planting of peanuts instead of cotton. It is Dr. Carver, by the way, who also devises a peanut butter, a less sensational discovery, perhaps, but one still very important to our daily lives. Like the zipper, introduced and popularized in Sweden in 1905. And the brassiere, which is separated from the corset for the first time in 1900. As early as 1901, King Camp Gillette, an American, introduced a razor that used replaceable blades, and they were double-edged. The vacuum cleaner was first patented by H.L. Booth, a plumber from New Jersey, in 1901. Cellophane was invented by accident by a textile specialist in 1908. Plastic begins with this product, Bakelite, in 1909, invented by Leo Baekeland. Eastman Kodak introduces a camera for everybody in 1900. Crayolas appear in 1903, the year after Barnum brings a menagerie to the kitchen table. Soon thereafter, toys appear in Cracker Jacks, and the New York World prints this very first crossword puzzle. Hamburger, ground beef, started in Hamburg, Germany. But the hamburger sandwich started in America. Frank Menchie's introduces the hamburger sandwich at the St. Louis World's Fair in 1904. He also introduces the ice cream cone at the same fair that same year. Sports has its 20th century firsts too. In baseball, the American League is formed in 1900. 3 years later, the Boston Red Sox beat the Pittsburgh Pirates in the first World Series. The first Rose Bowl game is played New Year's Day, 1902. Undefeated and unscored upon, Michigan clobbers the Stanford Indians 49-0. The International Team Tennis Trophy, the Davis Cup, is established 2 years earlier. It's conceived by American Dwight Davis, who helps his teammates capture the first cup. The Indianapolis 500 is run for the first time in 1911. The winning time is almost 75 miles an hour in a car driven by Ray Harroun. Jack Johnson becomes the first black heavyweight champion of the world in 1908 when he knocks out Tommy Burns. When he defeats Jim Jeffries, a great white hope, in Reno, Nevada 2 years later, race riots break out across the country. Johnson, called one of the most hated men alive, is finally beaten in 1915, but he has put the black man front and center in American sports. In 1903, the public flocks to storefront movie houses to see the first full-length narrative film, The Great Train Robbery. And at the end of the film, the first close-up in movie history. The silent movie industry in America is stepping up its pace, mostly in New York. One of the early favorites, Mack Sennett's One-Reelers, featuring the Keystone Cops. Enrico Caruso, an Italian tenor, is the first big star to sing on the new gramophone discs. In 1903, he records 10 arias, including Vesti la Giuba from Pagliacci. The sound that catapults us into the 20th century is ragtime. Its first major composer is Scott Joplin. In 1908, Arnold Schoenberg creates a new 12-tone sound. Later, Igor Stravinsky composes The Rite of Spring. Before the first decade is over, a Russian Jewish immigrant writes his own ragtime tune. It's an instant classic. Irving Berlin goes to work in 1909 in Florence Ziegfeld's Follies on Broadway. A first departure for the Follies that year is the funny yet sad Fanny Brice.
It cost me a lot, but there's one thing that I've got. It's my man.
Sarah Bernhardt, the divine Sarah, famous around the world for her portrayals of Camille and Tosca, turns to playing Hamlet at the 1900 World's Fair in Paris, a daring feminist act. She plays it, critics say, like a tiger. Anna Pavlova of the Russian Imperial Ballet, who popularizes ballet around the world, performs Saint-Saëns and Fokines' The Dying Swan for the first time in 1905. No one draws the parallel at the time, but Pavlova's Dying Swan mirrors the last moments of the 19th century.